Thank you, Presiding Officer, and let me add my congratulations to the Rural Affairs, Climate Change and Environment Committee for making time for this timely debate. Among the briefings that's available to us as MSPs is the UK post-2010 biodiversity framework published for the 4 countries biodiversity group. That's a group representing Scotland, England, Northern Ireland and Wales. And in its introduction, it talks about moving away from a piecemeal approach that deals with different aspects of biodiversity and environment separately towards a new focus on managing the environment as a whole, with the true economic and societal value of nature properly acknowledged and taken into account in all decision-making. And I think that's a pretty good starting place. We have also got probably the most comprehensive land use strategy anywhere in the world. That was published in 2011, Getting the Best from Our Land. And that is what it's about. But of course, strategies are all very well. They're not worth a great deal until they actually move into becoming plans, which are lists of actions that take place, and plans in their own way are of no value until they devolve into actual work on the ground. Now, national plans are important, they set context, but at the end of the day, it's individuals and local groups that can pick up and respond to the challenge right now. We don't need to wait. And they don't need to try and solve every problem. Perhaps at national level we can look at the gaps that local activity is leaving and seek to fill the gaps. But we should encourage individuals and local groups to go around. We can look around and we can see need, we can see opportunity and advantage in addressing this issue on a micro scale where the macro scale strategy is something else altogether, but will succeed if a sufficient amount of local micro-action is taking place. Now, a range of speakers in this debate have spoken about specific opportunities, specific challenges, and Jane Baxter in particular spoke of the importance of local ownership of action, and I absolutely agree. Where I live, when I get up in the morning in a rural area, there are probably about 7 houses within a mile. The weather seasonally can travel from -21 that it was in 2009's winter to nearly 40 degrees that it was in high summer last summer, a range of nearly 60 degrees Celsius, and that's quite unexpected in Scotland, which is generally thought of as being a relatively mild climate. I'm surrounded on 3 sides where I stay by a monoculture of poorly and densely planted firs. I'm not an arborist, but I think I can say that without much challenge coming towards me. And that has a significant negative influence on local biodiversity. We do have roe deer in the forest with badgers, foxes, weasels that live in and off the environment that's created. But look at the ground beneath these trees, and the forest canopy has left it all but sterile. There is nothing growing there. There is not even a particularly effective mulch that's returning what comes off the trees to the ground. So with that forest perhaps overdue for felling and therefore likely soon to leave us open in our hilltop location open to the elements, my wife and I have over the last 10 years looked at a mitigation plan that's relevant to us. We've planted a hedge and about 50 trees. But we've focused in doing that on something that does support biodiversity, in particular supports bug life. And I'm absolutely delighted that the diversity in our new hedge, the blossom on our trees and garden plants have clearly increased local insect biodiversity. I'm especially pleased to see and hear a substantial increase in bumblebees in particular. I'm not very good at identifying different species. I have managed to track down a decent book that has photographs, but I still find it very difficult. But I'm quite certain I've got 2 species. I may possibly have 3 species. And there's nothing better than to just go out and look at these feeding on the flowers, covered in pollen moving to other plants. We're fortunate that we're not in an area with great degree of agriculture. It's mostly beasts, sheep and cows, so we're not particularly exposed to the adverse effects of neonicotinoids and other things that might be used. Now, insects, of course, are at the bottom of the food chain, but therefore make a very important contribution to a wide range of other species. I don't know if in the last 4 years the appearance for the first time since we've been there of golden eagles for a few weeks each year is part of that evolving local ecosystem. But I very much welcome it and enjoy it. 1,000 metres away, we have reedside moss visibly drying out, and I think that's the next thing I'm going to go and have a look at. I had a wildlife camera given to me as my Christmas present. I have to say my wife's getting a bit peed off that I haven't managed yet to get it working and tied out in the forest. I very much look forward to doing that. If we all get engaged in the wildlife around us, we can all identify ways in which we can help. But perhaps let me just close by saying there was an engineer in the 1930s who said, if you have to measure an improvement, you probably haven't made one. We're at a position now where incremental change ain't to be good enough. We need step change that you can see, that you don't have to measure. Presiding Officer.